Imagine this. Somewhere beneath the noise of your daily life, beneath the surface-level desires, fears, and routines, there is a garden. A living, breathing inner landscape that has been shaping your destiny long before you realized it. And Jesus, speaking in symbols, riddles, and layered metaphors, once revealed a secret about this hidden inner world. A secret so profound that he wrapped it inside one of his most misunderstood teachings, the parable of the sower. Most people hear this parable and reduce it to a simple moral lesson: be good soil. But that's only the shell of the message, the outer husk. What Jesus delivered was not merely advice. It was a coded blueprint for inner transformation, a map of consciousness, a mystical teaching about how reality itself takes root within you. Ask yourself, why did Jesus speak in parables? Why did he say, "To you it has been given to know the mysteries of the kingdom, but to others it is in parables"? What mysteries was he referring to? In this video, we're going to crack open this ancient seed of wisdom. We'll explore what the parable meant to early mystics, to desert fathers, to hidden Christian sects who believed that the kingdom of God was not a distant place, but a state of consciousness accessible through inner cultivation. We'll journey into the historical undercurrents behind the teaching, how it echoes the spiritual agriculture metaphors found in Egyptian temple texts, the seed of light doctrines of the Essenes, and even the inner alchemy practices of forgotten mystics. We'll reveal how this teaching has been diluted over time, and why its deeper meaning is more relevant today than ever. And most importantly, we'll uncover what the 4 types of soil truly represent within you: the distracted mind, the wounded heart, the uncontrolled impulses, and the fertile inner ground where transformation finally takes hold. By the end of this exploration, you'll see that this parable was never just a story. It was a mirror, a revelation about how your inner life shapes your outer world, how your consciousness filters your destiny, and how spiritual growth is not a mystery reserved for saints, but a natural process encoded into the human soul. Let's step into the hidden meaning of the parable of the sower and discover what Jesus really meant about your inner life. To understand the parable of the sower, we must step back, far back, into a world where stories were vessels and symbols were the language of the initiated. Jesus did not invent the idea of divine seeds being planted within the human soul. He inherited a long, ancient tradition of spiritual agriculture that stretched across cultures and centuries. In the ancient Near East, farmers were not merely laborers. They were seen as imitators of the divine. The act of sowing seed was understood as a sacred ritual, scattering potential into the dark unknown, trusting that unseen forces would coax life out of silence. This symbolism appears in Sumerian hymns, in Egyptian creation myths, and in the mystical writings of the Essenes, an ascetic Jewish sect that many scholars believe influenced Jesus' teachings. To these ancient mystics, the seed represented sacred knowledge, and the soil symbolized the state of one's inner world. When Jesus used this imagery, he was tapping into a lineage of esoteric thought already familiar to spiritual seekers of his time. But he did something radical. He simplified the metaphor just enough that anyone could grasp it, while embedding layers of meaning deep enough that only the introspective could unlock them. In first-century Judea, most spiritual knowledge was controlled by religious elites. Wisdom was encoded in rituals, hidden behind temple walls, or preserved in secret scrolls. Yet Jesus taught openly in fields, on hillsides, in crowded marketplaces, not because his message was simple, but because he believed its true depth could only be understood by those willing to look inward. This is why he repeatedly said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." It wasn't about physical hearing, it was about inner receptivity. Philosophically, the parable also reflects a universal truth found in ancient mystery schools. Consciousness is not static. It is soil that can be hardened, choked, shallow, or cultivated. Early Gnostic Christians interpreted the parable as a diagram of the human psyche, with each soil type representing a different stage of spiritual development. Meanwhile, desert monks believed the seed was the divine spark hidden in every soul, and the sower was the higher self, tirelessly offering guidance that most people fail to recognize. As time passed, however, the deeper layers of this teaching faded. The early church favored moral clarity over mystical nuance. The psychological and esoteric dimensions of the parable were gradually replaced by surface-level interpretations. What was once considered a map for inner awakening became a simple warning about listening to sermons. But beneath the layers of doctrine, the original power of the parable remains intact. Its message is timeless because the human inner landscape has not changed. We still battle distraction. We still wrestle with emotional wounds. We still allow fears, habits, and external pressures to choke our potential. And we still possess, buried somewhere inside, a fertile place, an inner sanctuary, capable of extraordinary transformation. It is from this ancient philosophical perspective that we must approach the parable of the sower, not as a moral lesson, but as a coded message, a mirror, a spiritual map that reveals not only how divine wisdom enters your life, but how you receive it, resist it, or allow it to flourish. Now that we understand the lineage behind the story, we can begin unlocking its core meaning, one layer at a time. To truly understand the parable of the sower, we must step inside it, not as spectators, but as participants. Jesus wasn't describing different kinds of people. He was describing different states within each of us. States that shift, fluctuate, collide, and mature throughout our lives. The parable is not a judgment. It is a diagnosis, a map of your inner terrain. Let's begin with the first landscape. The path. In the story, some of the seed falls on the path, and birds immediately swoop down to devour it. The path is beaten, hardened by many footsteps. In ancient symbolism, a hardened path represents a mind overrun by distraction, routine, and noise. It's the part of you that has been walked on by expectations, responsibilities, and past experiences. When new insight tries to enter, it cannot sink in. It stays on the surface, vulnerable to the birds, symbolizing intrusive thoughts, doubts, or external influences that steal your clarity before it can take root. Everyone has this inner path. It's the morning you wake with inspiration, only to lose it the moment your phone lights up. It's the profound insight you receive in meditation that evaporates once you remember your to-do list. This is not failure. It is simply uncultivated ground. Next, Jesus describes the seed that falls on rocky soil, a place where the earth is shallow, where seeds sprout quickly but cannot survive the heat of the sun. This represents the parts of you that are enthusiastic but ungrounded. It's the burst of motivation that fades in days, the spiritual awakening that collapses under pressure, the dream that feels real until life tests you. For ancient mystics, rockiness symbolized emotional fragmentation, old wounds, unresolved conflicts, and unhealed memories that prevent inner roots from growing deep. Insight can bloom rapidly here, but without emotional depth, it withers. The sun in this context is not punishment, it is revelation. It's life showing you where you're not yet stable enough to hold the transformation you crave. Then comes the mange, thorny soil, where the seed grows but becomes strangled by thorns. This is perhaps the most relatable landscape. The thorns represent the cares of the world, worries, obligations, consumption, comparison, desire. These are not inherently evil. They are simply distractions with gravity. They pull your attention outward, away from your inner garden. This is the subtle trap of modern life. You may be spiritually aware, emotionally open, and mentally receptive, but still overwhelmed by the thicket of everyday concerns. Growth becomes possible, but not sustainable. The inner seed competes for energy and attention, and most days, the thorns win. Finally, Jesus describes the good soil, the fertile inner ground, where the seed grows into an abundant harvest. But here's the secret most people miss. Good soil is not something you are. It is something you become. It is cultivated through awareness, intention, and inner labor. Ancient teachers understood that soil becomes fertile through breaking, turning, watering, nourishing. In spiritual terms, this is the work of reflection, discipline, and growth. And yet, even good soil produces different yields, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. This variation suggests one of the most radical teachings hidden in the parable. Spiritual growth is not uniform. It is not a competition. It is a personal cycle of alignment between your inner receptivity and the wisdom being planted within you. As we move deeper into the next section, we will uncover the symbolic paradoxes embedded in the parable. Why the sower scatters seed recklessly, why failure is built into the process, and why Jesus describes the kingdom not as a treasure to be seized, but as a seed that must be tended. Prepare to explore the layers beneath the story, because the real mystery has only just begun. To deepen our exploration of the parable of the sower, we must shift our perspective from the visible story to the invisible structure beneath it. Jesus wasn't merely describing spiritual receptivity. He was revealing a cosmic pattern, a blueprint for how transformation unfolds in every human life. And to understand this pattern, we must examine the elements that often go unnoticed: the sower, the seed, the act of scattering, and the mysterious insistence that some will fail. Let's begin with the sower, God. In the traditional reading, the sower is God, or the divine teacher. But in esoteric interpretation, the sower also symbolizes your higher self, the part of you that continually offers insight, intuition, and guidance, even when your conscious mind isn't prepared to receive it. The sower does not discriminate. He does not carefully select only the fertile soil. Instead, he scatters the seed everywhere, on the path, in the rocks, among the thorns, and into rich soil alike. This, in itself, is profound. The divine does not withhold wisdom. Your deeper self does not ration intuition. Inspiration arrives at unexpected times, in chaos, in pain, in mundanity, in stillness, because the sower is generous, tireless, and utterly hopeful. The scattered seed is an act of unconditional trust in your potential. Then there is the seed itself. In mystical traditions, a seed represents more than truth. It represents truth in compressed form, a microcosm of a larger reality. A seed is potential, but it is also a pattern, a blueprint encoded with the destiny of what it may become. Every time you receive an insight, a moment of clarity, a spark of inspiration, you are receiving a seed. It contains everything it needs to transform your inner world, if it finds the right conditions. But here is the paradox most people miss. Failure is built into the system. Jesus does not describe a world where every seed must flourish. In fact, most of them do not. And this is not a tragedy. It is a revelation about the nature of inner work. Transformation doesn't happen because you heard the right message once. It happens because you cultivated the inner soil over time. The parable normalizes the fact that not every insight will stick. Not every breakthrough will last. Not every moment of awakening will change your life. Some seeds will be lost. Some will sprout and collapse. Some will be choked out before they bloom. This is not a reason to despair. It is permission to be human. The why, thorns. The ween, rocks. In, and the pike path are not enemies. They are stages. They show the evolution of consciousness. Every seeker must pass through distraction, emotional fragmentation, and the chokehold of worldly concerns. These inner states aren't signs you're failing. They're evidence that the process is working exactly as it should. The seed tries again and again, and each attempt softens the soil a little more. Now consider the harvest. 30-fold, 60-fold, or 100-fold. In ancient times, a 10-fold harvest was exceptional. 100-fold was miraculous, almost unthinkable. Jesus used this exaggerated number deliberately. He was showing that the inner transformation he spoke of was not linear or predictable. It was exponential. A single insight, once rooted in fertile inner ground, has the potential to reshape an entire life. There is also a subtler layer. The parable describes not one harvest, but several. 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold. This reveals multiplicity in spiritual development. Not all growth is dramatic. Some seasons of your life yield moderate abundance. Others bring overwhelming transi. Now that we've explored the hidden architecture of the parable of the sower, the question becomes, what do you actually do with this knowledge? How do you take these mystical insights and translate them into transformation within your daily life? Because Jesus never intended the parable to remain theory. It was always meant to be lived, experienced in the quiet corners of your mind, in the choices you make each day, in the unseen work of tending your inner world. Let's walk through the practical path of cultivation. We begin with awareness. The gentle art of noticing your inner landscapes. Every day your mind cycles through the four soils. Sometimes you are the hardened path, distracted and overwhelmed. Other times you live in the rocky terrain of emotional reactivity. Some days you are tangled in thorns, pulled in 1,000 directions. And occasionally you find yourself in a moment of clarity, fertile soil, ready for growth. The first step is simply recognizing which soil you're standing in at any given moment. Without awareness, cultivation is impossible. Next comes softening the path. The hardened soil is the part of you that has become numb from routine, overwhelmed by stimulation, or desensitized by repetition. To soften this inner ground, introduce moments of stillness. Try a brief daily ritual, 1 minute each morning where you simply sit, breathe, and listen. This single minute begins to loosen the compacted earth. Over time, it creates space for insight to sink in rather than bounce off the surface of your consciousness. Then, work on lifting the stones. The unhealed emotional fragments that prevent roots from growing. This is not about digging through your entire past. It's about noticing your triggers, your reactive patterns, your emotional hotspots. When you feel irritation, fear, or defensiveness arise, pause and breathe into it. Name the feeling. Labeling an emotion is like lifting a stone. It gives the roots of insight room to spread. Now turn to the thorns. Those creeping distractions that choke out your inner growth. They are subtle and relentless. Overthinking, comparison, overconsumption, worry. You do not eliminate thorns by force. You manage them through conscious boundaries. Set small, sacred windows of time where you disconnect from the noise. No notifications, no multitasking, no mental clutter. These moments clear the thickets and create space for your inner seed to flourish. Finally, we reach nourishing the good soil. Good soil is not perfect soil. It is prepared soil. You cultivate it through consistency, small daily acts that keep your inner world open, soft, receptive. This might be journaling at night to capture insights before they're stolen by birds, It might be meditation, mindful walking, or simply paying attention during ordinary moments. Nourishment also comes from aligning your outer actions with your inner values. Integrity is fertilizer for the soul. One powerful exercise is the 3 seeds practice. At the end of each day, write down 3 small insights, moments of clarity, or lessons you encountered. Don't judge them. Don't dismiss them. Just record them. Over time, you'll notice patterns emerging, signs that the sower is constantly at work within you. And remember, cultivation is cyclical. You will revisit each soil again and again. There is no finish line. No soil is superior. Each has its purpose. The path teaches awareness. The rocks teach emotional depth. The thorns teach focus and discernment. The fertile soil teaches receptivity and abundance. Transformation happens not when you eliminate the lower soils, but when you learn to navigate them with consciousness. By applying these practices, you align yourself with the natural rhythm of growth embedded within the parable. You begin to feel the process unfolding in real time, and slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly, you become the fertile ground where wisdom thrives. In the final section, we will gather the threads of this journey and leave you with a closing insight, one that may shift how you see your inner world forever. We will gather the threads of this parable and weave them into a single, living path, one you can carry with you long after the teachings fade from memory. Because the ultimate purpose of the parable of the sower is not intellectual mastery. It is integration. It is becoming the kind of person in whom wisdom naturally takes root. To integrate this teaching, begin by remembering the 3 eternal movements embedded within the parable. 1. The sower is always at work. Your deeper self, the quiet, steady, patient source within you, never stops offering insight. Even when you feel lost, stagnant, or unworthy, the sower continues to scatter seeds into your life. Awareness of this constancy creates trust. Trust creates openness. Openness creates transformation. 2. The soil is always changing. You will never remain one type of soil forever. You are a dynamic landscape, continually reshaped by experience, intention, and attention. This means nothing is fixed. Not your fears, not your distractions, not your limitations. The soil of your inner world expands and softens every time you choose presence over autopilot, courage over avoidance, depth over distraction. 3. The seed contains more than you can imagine. Within each insight, each moment of clarity, each spark of truth, there is a blueprint far larger than the insight itself. A single well-rooted seed can alter the course of your inner life in ways that seem disproportionate, even miraculous. This is why Jesus described harvests of 30, 60, and 100-fold. He was pointing toward the exponential nature of inner growth. When you weave these 3 truths together, a new understanding emerges. You are both the field and the farmer. You are both the soil and the sower. You are both the place where transformation happens and the one who cultivates it. This dual identity is the heart of spiritual maturity. It means you stop waiting for external circumstances to perfect your inner world. Instead, you learn to tend it from the inside, patiently, gently, consistently. So let this parable accompany you. Let it travel with you into your mornings, your silence, your conflicts, your decisions. Let it remind you that every moment is a seed-bearing moment. Let it soften your frustration when growth feels slow. Let it ground you when the thorns overwhelm. Let it encourage you when old stones rise to the surface. Let it awaken you to the quiet miracle unfolding beneath the surface of your life. And above all, let it teach you that spiritual transformation is not something you force. It is something you prepare for. It is something you cultivate. It is something you receive. For the one who tends the soil with patience will, in time, witness harvests beyond measure. For he who has ears to hear, the inner ear, the listening heart, the parable becomes not a story, but a path, a way of becoming, a way of seeing, a way of growing, and finally, a way of awakening.